everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Invincible After Show, brought to you by Agents of Fandom. As always, I am one of your hosts, TJ AKA Fat Thor, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Sean Mott from Metalcore Nerds, Collider, and of course, Agents of Fandom. Sean, how you doing today?
Doing great. What a week it's been for tragic comic book adaptation losses. That's all I'm going to say.
Seriously. Man, you just reminded me of the other one, which I won't. That's another show for another time that you can catch every week after Daredevil airs. But TJ, our editor-in-chief, our fearless leader, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. Got my Daredevil stuff up here behind me still from our show every Tuesday, which of course, like you said, you can find Tuesday nights immediately after Daredevil airs. We got some really fun stuff coming with that. We already have our first episode up. We have our interviews with showrunner Dario Scardipan and executive producer Sana Amanat. And then coming up on this coming Monday, breaking news, myself and Sean right here alongside with us are going to be chatting with the Newton brothers, the guys who created the new score and the new intro theme for Daredevil Born Again. So we're going to chat with them for 45 minutes. We got a nice conversation lined up. So Monday we'll have that. Tuesday we'll have our new episode dropping for Daredevil Born Again. Thursday we'll be back talking the season finale of Invincible. Friday we'll be talking Severance. Saturday you got the Comic Corner. So make sure you're smashing that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because we got lots of great stuff. I may or may not have secured an interview today with some of the cast members of an upcoming Star Wars show that might be dropping in the next month or two here, a season 2. So stay tuned. We got a lot of great stuff coming, and I'm excited to talk about this episode of Invincible because I think I tweeted about this the other day. I think this might be my favorite episode of Invincible of all time.
I mean, it's easy to see why. I'll say this is my favorite issue of the comics. I mean, there's a lot of really great events throughout Invincible, but there's something about Invincible War. Like there's something special about it. So, I mean, we got a lot to talk about. Not much time to do it, so let's get right into it. I mean, again, the Invincible War, one of the most iconic events from the comics. Again, personally, one of my favorites. So I loved this episode. I loved every minute of it. I loved how they adapted it so closely to the comic, but also added a lot of really interesting changes. So again, I obviously loved it, but what did you guys think? TJ, you obviously just said that it was your favorite episode. So unpack that a little bit. Why? I mean, there's been so many great Invincible episodes. What about this one took it above for you?
I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. You know, like I felt very confidently Adam Eve was not going to die, but the writing and the voice acting from Steven Yeun was just so strong that I felt like it was going to happen. And I was terrified that it was going to happen the entire time. I obviously am a Adam Eve fan. And so I was very, very worried for her. But I was just enthralled this entire episode. The stakes were so high. The action was so good. And it was just nonstop, start to finish. It was either intense, thrilling action and storytelling or emotional, heartbreaking scenes that when they slow it down are still like the heart of the episode. The stuff between Cecil and Mark throughout the episode was just so strong, and then they end it with an absolute fucking bang.
Yeah.
That last scene was just so one of my favorite scenes. Like, I'm mad, like what we're gonna get to it, but just like when a character is pissed off, and like it felt like you know, like this is an odd comparison. Because this isn't even a very good movie, but it's a movie I watched when I was a kid, and so I thought it was a good movie, and it always just got me so fired up. Have you ever seen Never Back Down?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fighting movie.
Like the MMA movie.
Hunt's in it. Amber Heard is in it. There's like so many scenes throughout that movie where it's just like goofy, and all of a sudden like music that's like hyping you up starts playing, and there's like training and punching shit. And that's what I felt like in this last scene of like, Mark, I just want to go punch somebody too. I'm with you. Let's do this.
I 100% agree. I didn't get the never back down vibes, but now that you mention it, it's 1-to-1. Absolutely. But
one of those movies that I know isn't that good of a movie, but I watched it at a time in my life when I was young enough that like every movie's a good movie if it's cool. And so like it's just like it's in my head as like a good childhood movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that are dog shit that I love. Thor: Love and Thunder, but Hey,
relax.
Hey, come on now. But we're gonna talk a lot about that last moment, because like you said, holy crap, was that just such a gut punch to end on. But like you said, I love that moment of like after this episode, obviously, Mark just like loses it. Like he's not holding back anymore, which is a theme that we really saw kind of in the beginning of this season, and even in season 2, of him questioning like, am I more like my dad than I want to admit, especially after what happened with Levy. But Sean, do you have anything else to add on to how you felt about the episode? I think we're all in agreement that it was a fantastic episode.
Oh yeah, what an amazing episode. Like what you both said, the stakes were there the entire time, and they're felt like worldwide in this, which I think is very important for the show to continue to level those things up. And as we've spoken about ad nauseum these past few weeks, is that the show just continues to intensify entirely. And I will say I called this because before we got the screeners for the last 2 episodes, we were theorizing of how they would lay these last 2 episodes out. And I was like, I think they can handle the events of the Invincible War in one episode if they're cutting between different scenes, but they're all dealing with the Invincible War. And that's exactly what they did. I guess I write for Invincible now.
Hey man, you've talked to Kurtman, so you're pretty much on the ground floor already.
Yeah, I know it said written by Robert Kirkman, but if you look really small, my name's under there.
Yeah,
you know.
Zoom in times 1,000, and
yeah,
you'll
it's
see
there.
Sean Mott right there.
It's right there.
But yeah,
I totally agree.
Amazing. I totally agree too. And again, it's just shows how well they've adapted the comic book to screen. Again, Invincible War is only one issue. As impactful and as great and like you said, nonstop as it feels, it is only one issue. So I'm like, hats off to them for achieving that in the television format and making it just as impactful and intense. And speaking of, impactful and intense, I got to ask you guys, not reading the comics, which maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like it was kind of known among everyone that like Angstrom Levy was going to come back eventually. But the opening scene when we see like how he survived his first encounter with Mark, and then his eventual return with all the evil marks coming down from the sky, like, did that completely take you guys by surprise? Were you expecting Levy to come back like in that capacity, or was that just like totally just like shocking for you guys? Sean, I'll throw it off to you first on the Levy.
If this season didn't tease him, I would have been shocked. But when they first teased him, when it was like episode like 3 or something, where they didn't show him, but you heard his voice and you could like clearly hear it was Sterling K. Brown. I was like, oh shit, he's not dead. Okay, cool.
We're all in the midst of watching Paradise right now. We're not going to mistake that voice. That voice is fresh in our minds.
Yes,
iconic.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I wonder how they're going to do that. And then in this episode, they obviously show us, which, what a brutal scene to see his dude. Mark messed this dude up. Like, I can't believe he was still alive. Like, he was just like, I don't know if anyone's seen The Monkey, but it reminds me of the scene of The Monkey. This dude gets trampled by horses and all that's left is like his remains in a sleeping bag, and his whole body looks like what Angstrom Levy's head looked like. It's really gross.
Remind me of Never Back Down. When I'm just kidding.
When that dude
Oh
just
man, yeah, when
killed that guy.
that kid just punched that dude's face in. That was crazy.
Yeah, his brains were splattered all across the map. It was crazy. So I guess not surprising in the fact that like, oh, they teased him, and obviously the tag of last week's episode perfectly set up this episode. But in terms of him coming back entirely before the season, I thought he was dead, especially with the way they handle Mark dealing with killing him. And that's the thing I'm sure we'll get into more, is that him realizing that he didn't kill him, and it almost like doubles down his feelings of killing him. You know, and that's such a interesting, like, it's adding more to this character and more to, and it's crazy because like obviously now we're talking about like Daredevil's back, and I talked about how it's that conversation mirrors the Punisher Daredevil conversation, and what Daredevil does in the first episode is like very much it's kind of really funny that two superhero episodes are dealing with the same thing just on different levels, but it's like poetry, it rhymes, I guess. But yeah, I'm stoked he's back because, and I was talking to these guys before we hit record, but I'm actually working on an article that's going to kind of explore how like Angstrom Levy's like probably what the MCU wanted Kang to be, but couldn't pull off. Not just storyline reasons. Obviously, there was a lot of other factors that made that not happen. But man, this is how you do a multiversal threat. Like, not only is he has like plans A through Z laid out so he doesn't die, he came back with 18 versions of evil you. When you're already struggling with yourself, then you have to literally face yourself. Like, that is
literally
next level villainy,
dude. Yeah,
and crazy.
And I love the point you bring up too about like, you know, Angstrom having this plan and like always, you know, thinking 5 steps ahead. And like, it's such a weird position that Mark is put in, because before, his like biggest regret was killing Levy, and now it's flipped, like, oh, my regret, like, I should have killed him, right? Like, it just completely flips it on its head. And I also want to say just really quickly, I was really, obviously we've talked about this, we got the screeners for this season, and on the screeners there's no subtitles, so I was honestly really disappointed when the episode came out and they put Angstrom's name on the subtitle, which I know is like a small thing. Like, we all, like you said, we could identify his voice, but I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to at least try and leave it somewhat mysterious. But TJ, same thing with Angstrom Levy's return, and also just like hitting the gas immediately. Like, these marks come down and like just start destroying everything, and we kind of linger on some of these a lot longer than we do in the comics. So again, did that just like not only shock you, but just like, were you surprised they hit the gas that early?
I'm never surprised with them hitting the gas in Invincible, because I feel like anytime we're laying off the gas is more of a surprise. Like, it's those moments like we talked about in episode 6 where it's like, damn, it's so nice to see Mark just being happy for a bit, and Mark and Eve just get to go on a date and enjoy each other's presence. And, you know, Debbie's good, Debbie's chilling, Debbie's fine, and it's just like, we're happy, right? We're happy and feeling safe. That those moments in Invincible feel more surprising to me than when they're putting the foot to the gas. But having said that, still, I'm the type of person where when I'm watching these shows of superheroes, and I like it's my favorite type of content, I can't help but think like, oh, guys, take them out of town. You know, like in Dragon Ball, through Dragon Ball Z, through Dragon Ball Super, all these things, when my guy Goku's sitting there, and right when all the shit talking's done, right before they're about to fight, he goes, wait, let's take this somewhere where there's some more space. And then they go to like an open canyon where nobody's there. It always makes me feel like, ooh, shit, no, the people, even though this is made up, every time I see people just like running through buildings and tearing up cities, it's like, damn, who's in that building right now? Oh no, go somewhere else. And Invincible does that in bunches, right? Like, Invincible not only shows the civilian destruction, but it shows you the repercussions of the civilian. Exactly. And so with that being the case, it is still hitting hard, even though it's things that you have grown to expect from the series. Even though it's something that's not new to the series, it's still like the way it's written and the way it's portrayed, you still feel bad about all these imaginary people that you've never even met before, because they do such a good job of telling stories like Power Plexes, where that was somebody we had no idea who he was in the first season, and he was inconsequential to us. But we see later on, because they develop these stories throughout the universe that show, well, it's not inconsequential to these random little drawings on the page. These random little drawings on the page are characters and people, and they have their own stories within this universe. And it's expanded upon so well that it still makes it hard hitting. From the Angstrom Levy side of things, I agree with Sean 100%. This is like what a Kang the Conqueror story should be. What makes him so well written is it's tough to do a super genius. That's, to me, one of the bigger problems of Captain America Brave New World with the leader, is he's cool and he's talking shit and I'm a genius. I got all these plans. I knew this would happen because I calculated it. Well, if you were 68% sure something would happen, why don't you have backup plans for the other 32%? You should have if this goes wrong, you got this. If this goes wrong, you got this. If this goes wrong, you got this. That's something I do all the time in my everyday life. It's one of the reasons why when things are good, life is good and I'm chilling, my anxiety is at its worst, because I'm finding all the things that could go wrong, and I'm finding all the ways that the other shoe is going to drop, and that time of peace and happiness isn't going to last, just like Invincible. And so when shit hits the fan, that's when my brain calms down and it goes, hey, I knew this was going to happen, so I can do this, this, and this because I planned for it. And all of a sudden things calm down a little bit. And it's cool to see the backup plans with a character like Angstrom Levy. It's not compelling if somebody just always wins, right? But when they lose and they come back stronger because they've learned from their mistakes and they have all of these exits for when shit hits the fan, or anything to come back stronger than they were before, come back, if not stronger, come back smarter with a new strategy and a new angle to attack this from. And I think they do a really good job of writing that with him.
I mean, 1,000,000% agree. That's one of the things I love about Levy, and is kind of a common theme with a lot of invincible villains is, yeah, Mark will beat them physically, right? Like Angstrom, and we see we'll talk about the results of this at the end, but at the end, like, did he really win? Like, the way that it affects Mark, like the guilt and all those things. And again, we see he at the end, he's kind of done holding back now, and Angstrom successfully pushed him to that point that he wanted to. So again, it really makes the kind of success versus failure a little bit of a gray area. And speaking of
it's interesting to kind of consider too, because he's multiversal, because he's a time traveler, we make these comparisons to a Kang the Conqueror, but honestly, with the more kind of one for one, is he's really Mark's Joker, right? Like, this is a character who doesn't care about anything other than messing with our main protagonist. Yep. They just want to see his world burn, as Alfred put it in The Dark Knight. Not he once said the world burn, like some men just want to see the world burn, but for Angstrom, he just wants to see Mark's world burn. And he has no other intent other than he doesn't care if he dies. I mean, he obviously has these backup plans, so he doesn't, but he doesn't care if he dies as long as Mark loses. And mirroring that, we see, like, Pierre brought it up earlier in chat, like, if he did kill him, none of this death and destruction would have happened. We talked about that earlier, about how he doesn't want to do it, but because he did, it was messing with his head and it changed his perspective on so many things. He had a no-kill rule. He didn't want to do it, like Batman with the Joker. And how many times have you heard people say, like, if Batman would just kill this guy, none of this would have ever happened, but then he wouldn't be Batman. And that does take its toll on a person's psyche, as we see from Mark, and we've seen from Mark in the past, and we'll continue to see from Mark in the future.
Which is exactly what Oliver tells him in the end of the episode, just like Pierre said here in the comments. exactly what you just said. If he would have killed Angstrom originally, none of this would happen. And Mark even talks about this during the episode. I don't know if he says his exact line in the episode, but in the comics, he says it like, when I was fighting one of the Invincibles, he's like, I looked into his eyes and I saw myself. And I realized this is all my fault. Even if it's them doing it, like they are me. Like this is all still my fault. But I want to go back really quickly to TJ, something that you brought up, which we talk about a lot and we all love here, are those kind of softer, more quiet moments of the episode. And I want to bring this up just very quickly because we have, bigger moments to talk about, but we talk a lot about how Eve is Mark's rock and like really brings balance to his life and their relationship. And just a really quick change and something I think adds to this theme that we've been talking about in pretty much all these episodes is when Mark and Eve are in Mark's house in the before everything kind of really kicks off, and they talk about Powerplex and like how that affected him and how he feels about that whole thing. And in the book, that conversation does not happen. They just talk about meeting her parents. So again, I just wanted to bring that up just because, again, that's something that we've talked about a lot, and just, again, further hammers home that point of like how important Eve's support is for Mark. Did either of you guys got anything else to say about that?
Not really. I will have a whole lot of Adam Eve thoughts, I think, in our next week's episode. But this week, I was happy to see her involved. I understand her perspective, even though Mark is telling her to stay away. I wouldn't either if I'm in her shoes. And I just think she is the absolute best, and I want to continue to see more of her. I'm happy she's okay. Yeah. Happy it was just a broken leg.
Well,
a snapped in half leg.
For now. But we have to talk about like the biggest
How dare you?
Hey, man. Hey, I didn't say nothing. But to me, there's a lot of big things in this episode. I also want to shout out, Pierre mentioned this in the comments as well. We got Wolfman and Brit in this episode, two Invincible characters that have been noticeably absent. And yes, and we also see Tech Jacket, who, again, characters that have been noticeably absent. And we've even talked about this before, about kind of theorizing if perhaps it was like a rights sort of thing, because technically they're like, Wolfman is from Astonishing Wolfman. He is featured in Invincible. Brit is more guarding of the globe. So we talked about how like maybe they have plans for like their separate shows. So it was a pleasant surprise to see them pop up. But the moment I'm talking about is Rex Splode. I figure we can just talk about all Rex right now, because I feel like he deserves his own little segment. But now we've talked about this pretty much the whole season. I've tried not to like really allude to anything when we talk about like why they've done the Shrinking Ray and Rex relationship thing. Well, now we know it was to make this moment even more impactful than it was in the book. But obviously, if you're tuning in this episode, you probably know, spoiler ahead, Rex Splode does not make it out of the Invincible War. He valiantly sacrifices himself to save the rest of the team and his friends. And so this is devastating for me. I need a moment to collect my thoughts. So I'll throw it off to you guys first. Sean, I think you've been a fan of Rex, right? Like he's obviously written to be an asshole in the beginning, but with everything with Shrink Ray and this journey he's been on, we talked about how, him and Shrink Ray have been trying to just have relatively normal lives outside of being a superhero, and finding that that's not possible. So take it away, Sean. How bad did you cry at Rex?
Okay, so when I just dropped an Invincible article kind of talking about how the title cards were teasing the alternate version of Mark's, and in doing research for that, I kind of read that this was going to happen, but even still, it did not really. So I think that's the beauty of shows and stuff. Like, even if they're adapting something, like a lot of people are like, if you read a book or play a video game that gets adapted, like sometimes you're just aware of these big moments that are going to happen. But the biggest praise I can give this show is that I even knew this was coming, and it still like just wrecked me. And I want to give super big credit to whoever's choice it was, because you see it happen. It's shocking. You see characters react to it within the show, and then they just hit you with this song choice, and then all this devastation that's happening from the Invincible War, and it's just the perfect 1-2 punch to get you to cry. Like it was masterful. And like I was even revisiting it, and I was like, as soon as that music hits, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go cry in a corner now. Great, cool, awesome, you know. But I also don't think another death could have been as impactful at this moment in the show, because I think something as big as like Debbie or Adam Eve almost feels like too big to happen now, if that makes sense. I know obviously there's, you know, plot armor, but again, this is Robert Kirkman, the guy who made The Walking Dead, who killed off everyone. No one is safe in that show or comic. So I'm not leaving that out of the era possibility eventually, but I think from a storytelling perspective, I think anything else would have felt a little out of place. This one works because of all of the storytelling they've been doing with Rex, particularly in these last 2 seasons, this redemption arc for him and him growing as a person. And as soon as it happens, I'm just like, man, what a bummer. But I mean, that's,
yeah,
we're sad about it. That's good storytelling, right? You know?
Yep. It's such a bummer, man. And it just, again, just the way they did it in the television show, and like you said, with like the music and panning around the destruction afterward, like it's just so impactful. And again, all the shrink ray and Rex scenes are completely new, but something I loved about their when they're in front of the house, like before Rex enters the fight, he says he's talking about how like things are good. He's like, the team's less annoyed at me for the first time. Like I feel like I'm in a good place. And fans saw this a little bit in last episode, but knowing at least a little bit about his backstory, how he came to be Rex Splode, and like just the tragic life he's lived, that line just like, ooh, it just makes everything so much worse. TJ, take it away. Rex Splode. I mean, it's just, I'm at a loss for words. So you fill in the words for me.
There's something so beautiful about a redemption arc, and when that redemption arc gets cut short, it's really painful. And you know, Rex was never a villain, but he was a full-on asshole. Like he was a terrible guy, with maybe a decent moral compass to, you know, do the right thing, but in everyday situations, communicating with others and how he impacts those around him, he's an ass. And, you know, Pierre saying like Jason Mantzoukas did an amazing job voicing Rex. I agree, especially because we typically only see Jason Mantzoukas voicing crazy guys or assholes, or most often crazy assholes. And so getting to see that with Rex and have him grow and mature to a different level, so that's not that character anymore. He was one of the kind of the beacons of hope in the series, because it's like as shit gets worse, Rex becomes a better guy, and Rex becomes a crucial member of the show, a crucial member of the team, and a big part of Mark's life. And so it's really, it does hit hard when he's gone. And I unfortunately got this spoiled as well. For me, it was just like on a random Twitter thing. It was like, could you believe that Adam Eve was upset at Rex's funeral? Yeah, I fucking can. Get this shit off my page. Why are you spoiling this for me with this stupid ass engagement bait question? I can believe that. And so I got it spoiled as well, but it is still pretty hard hitting when he's gone. It's not like shocking because he's almost tried to do this like 6 times throughout the series. You know, like he's almost tried to just be like, I'm the last line of defense. I'm not going to run. I'm going to go out guns blazing. But then he always just like manages to recover, and he's like on the brink of death, but not actually dead. And it does make you wonder a little bit. See, so what the hell, bro? You go through all these crazy lengths to make sure all these villains don't die. You can't keep our guy Rex Splode alive?
Dude, honestly, right? Like, there's got to be something they could do to I mean, I don't know. He kind of exploded, but that brings
Rex
up
robot.
yeah, true. I mean,
He
they
exploded
save
a
Donald
skeleton.
all the time. Like Donald's been messed up plenty of times. But that just brings up an interesting question that I just thought about. I want to ask you guys. So obviously this one is more sad and like, tragic. But from like a shock value, what do you think? Which Rexplode death do you think was better? This one or when he gets shot in the head by King Lizard? Because I mean, that's still crazy. Like you said, TJ, he always goes down swinging, and I think both are just crazy.
This one was more poetic to me, just because the explosion. He took down an Invincible with him, which at the end of the day, that's what he wanted to do. That's what he ultimately wanted, to be a hero and not a dick, and he was. And so it's really sad, but like, he went out. If if Rexplode could choose how he wanted to go out, that would be exactly it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, TJ.
I definitely think you're right there.
I said 100%. I completely agree. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with TJ. This is definitely more poetic. The Lizard League thing was definitely shocking. I remember watching it being like, what is going on? What is happening? I was like, everything is going to shit. What is, but that's the show. The show is just constantly like keeping you on your toes of like, no one is safe.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a perfect setup for this, like, oh, what if he makes it out again? It's like, well,
yeah, I was just about to say that too.
Exploded his skeleton, so
yeah.
I don't think so.
Pierre bringing up another great point, that this episode revealed that Eve's childhood friend from the Adam Eve special also died. All that's left of her past now that Rexplode's gone are her shitty parents.
Dude, yes, thank you,
rough,
Pierre. That makes it hurt even more. I think we talked about Adam Eve kind of origins a little bit last episode. But yeah, the show just does such a great job with making, again, this scene just so much more impactful. And the other line that I really loved is how the evil Mark tells Rex, like, you're pointless. Like your whole life has just been pointless. And to TJ's point, he's always just wanted to be a hero. Again, we get a little bit of this, but Rex was sold by his own parents sold him to the government to just become this weapon. He was an assassin. Like the only reason he escaped that was because of Adam Eve. Like he found her, saw someone doing good with their powers, and was like, oh, I could do that too. And it took him all of this time to reach this point, to finally realize, like, yeah, my life does have meaning, and I'm going to make sure it has meaning right now. Like, I'm not pointless, because again, he took out an Invincible, which is almost damn near impossible. So, I mean, shout out Rexplode. I could talk about it forever. Another just gut punch extra that's like, Kirkman, why did you have to, again, double down so hard? Is the outline of his body with the explosion when they're like panning through? Dude, like, come on. That was not in the comic book. Again, so that's just like, dude, Kirkman, you had to add, like, you went through this whole episode and was like, you know what? I would like just add a little outline right there. Like, dude, come on. But we talked about this, and keeping on Eve, since we're kind of talking about her already. Eve versus the evil Mark, dudes. Like, that was awesome. Again, not something that in the book. She just kind of gets hurt immediately, and Mark flies her off.
Oh.
And so, like, the whole, like, them teaming up together and like Mark facing off with the other Mark, and it's all that's new, and I loved it. Again, just kind of highlighting their teamwork together, how supporting each other makes both of them stronger. So TJ, throw it off to you first on this. You talked about this a couple times already, but Eve kicking ass, being involved in the fight.
I brought up Dragon Ball Z earlier in this show, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I love Invincible, is because to me, Invincible is essentially what if you took Spider-Man Dragon Ball Z and The Boys and took all those tones and made it into one project. And one of the things that Dragon Ball Z has given me a love for is the trope of like the power up, the level up of we've been watching this show for years and now our favorite character is reaching a new level of power that you've never seen before and can finally defeat this impossible threat. I love it. It's cheesy, it's corny, but I love it. I adore it. And so it was really fun seeing them voice to like work together and things like that. But to me, these moments of damn it, Eve, I know there's more in you. Come on, girl, do it. It's they hurt to watch, they're tough to watch, but I know it's also gonna, from years of watching I'm not like a deep cut anime guy, but from years of watching mainstream animes, I know when our hero keeps getting knocked down, they're gonna come up bigger and better than ever. And I'm just very knowing from what I know about the comics, even though I haven't read deeper than where we are into them, I know Adam Eve becomes one of the most powerful characters in this series. And so I'm just gradually waiting for those moments. And when she's getting her ass kicked and her leg snapped in half, it's tough to see. But I know from watching my guy Goku, I know from getting all these bones shattered, he's eventually going to be coming back even stronger.
Yeah, dude, I love seeing her kick ass so much. Like the freaking suit of armor, and she's got like freaking maces. Like, it's so dope.
That is what I want to see more of here in the future. Of like,
yeah,
enough of the pink sheets and pink like balls that you're throwing at people. Do more cool shit. Use that mind and essentially do the cool different Green Lantern stuff. You know, if you can create anything you can imagine with your energy, we need to start seeing, since she is a very smart and intelligent person, we need to start seeing that creativity in battle.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we see in the comic, like you said, like kind of the shields, the like bubbles, the just kind of projectile little energy things. So I totally agree. I'm really excited to see some more creativity from Eve and like showcasing her real powers. Because like you said, I mean, this isn't really a spoiler. You could even just say this is my opinion, but Eve, in my mind, is undoubtedly the most powerful character in Invincible, like more powerful than Viltrumites for sure. But Sean, again, like this scene is completely new, just their team up again, Eve just kicking ass, and how it impacts Mark too. Again, going back to that same concept of like he's facing himself. He's literally face to face with all of his mistakes across the multiverse. Like he said, even though it's not him, it is him. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I think it's so sick that Eve didn't even really have a fight in the comics and they added it into this. I think it's so cool how much they've like elevated her character in the series, because she's like truly like, TJ is obviously not shy about saying it, but Eve's one of my favorite characters in the show too. She adds so much, and I think just makes Mark better. And it was pretty brutal to see like the disdain for Eve from the other Marks. That was pretty crazy.
Dude,
and it makes the danger feel more real, because they're like, oh yeah, I have one of you in my Earth and I hate her. You're like,
I think it makes so much sense too, because obviously that attraction would still be there, the natural chemistry would still be there, but what's the difference is Mark's fucking an asshole in all of these other universes, and Eve's not going to stand for that shit. So of course they have a terrible relationship in all of them, because without Debbie keeping Mark in line and raising him to be a good person, that natural chemistry and attraction might be there, but you can guarantee there'd be a pretty bad fallout if Mark's a terrible person.
Yeah, and we talked about last week about how Eve and Debbie are basically the two reasons why Mark did not turn out like these other Marks. And in the book, the one Mark goes even as far to say he says he killed his Eve, and he says, I'm gonna save her, killing you this time. Like, it's like even more brutal than that. So again, just showcases how important Eve truly is to Mark. I mean, in any universe. And I feel like that leads us perfectly. I want to talk about these alternate Marks, these evil Marks. We don't get like to spend a lot of time with any of them, especially not all of them. But again, we talked about this before about how every other Mark is pretty much every other one is evil. And we kind of get glimpses into the different paths that they took. Like we just said, in one, he killed Eve. I think one of them mentions how he killed Debbie. He killed his parent. He killed Debbie in their house. One of them was trapped in a Viltrumite prison. Another one killed Omni-Man. Like, it's, what did you think of all, like, again, just seeing all these different routes that Mark could have gone down or potentially could still go down? Something we've talked a lot about before. And also, who is your favorite Mark? I mean, they all got some very distinctive looks. So just who's your personal favorite evil Mark? Sean, I'll throw it to you first.
I think my favorite, I think it's just a stylistic choice, is the one they call, at least in the comics, they call Sinister Mark, the one with the cape. I just think he looks awesome, personally. But also, shout out Stephen Yoon for delivering such differentiating voices for the Invincibles. Like, that was
glad
so
you brought
impressive.
that up. Yeah,
it reminded me of in Spider-Man the anime. I know I always bring it back to this, but it reminded me of Christopher Daniel Barnes in Spider-Man the animated series when they do the Spider-Verse at the end, and he's like has to be Spider Carnage and these different characters. It reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And I think like it's like a weird, it's not even like a nitpick. Like I wish we got more with the Marks, like selfishly, because I thought it was just so interesting. And but I mean, as we see, not all of them die. A good chunk of them definitely die, because I think it started with 18. There's what, like 6 or 8 at the end or something. So I'm like,
he says how many died. Let me see.
Like, I'm very curious how that comes into play later. Because I'm sure it will.
I feel like I remember it being like 13 died, and then the other one was like, who cares? I'd have killed them all anyways. And then they all realized, like, wait a minute, Angstrom promised us all different things. We can't trust this guy.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, TJ, because that was going to be my next point that I thought was really cool and interesting. Is in the book, they just say that Angstrom promised them to be able to expand their empires into other dimensions. But here we see that he promised each one something different. And like the one Mark, he was promised that he could take Debbie back to his, which is like, that's crazy. But I thought that was just like super interesting to kind of differentiate these Marks and again highlight this theme of like something went wrong in each of their lives, but that's not necessarily the same thing. So I thought that was really cool and just added a whole other layer to it. But TJ, also, you didn't answer. Who's your favorite Mark? Who's your favorite evil Mark?
I don't necessarily know that it was like my favorite version, but the one I thought I liked the story idea of the best is I love like a what if scenario where there's a clear trigger point, you know, that like you see like, oh, this path makes sense to me. Like if this didn't happen, that would have gotten there. Very specifically, like from a Captain Marvel side of things, you know, like if Maria Rambeau beats Carol in that race to their work, then Maria is Captain Marvel and Carol's not. And Carol's the one sitting back on Earth. It's just whoever won that race would have got there, you know? And I love those kind of clear through points. And so seeing Mark in the all-white Viltrumite with the mustache of essentially going to his dad.
Yeah, that's a good one.
His dad convinced him to join the Empire, and he grew up to be his dad. That to me was the coolest one, because it's like I don't need that character to talk, and I know what his story is because of how he looks.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And also I think the same kind of applies to one of my favorites, the Omni-Man one. Like it's kind of the cape one that you're talking about, but it's just the Omni-Man colors.
Yep.
And then I personally, I love the Mohawk Mark. I like Mohawk Mark. I think
is crazy.
That's what I mean. He's just a freaking psycho, and it's like they're supposed to be evil Mark. So I love
the one that reminded me of the Spider
freak.
Carnage specifically from the Spider-Verse animated series.
100%.
I did really like the like back and forth between the two Marks that were fighting with Mark and Eve, where the one guy's just swearing. He's like, dude, swearing doesn't make you look cool. Like, I thought that was like incredible.
Again, another great addition to, again, just kind of give these other Marks a little bit of personality. Like, you know, because I mean, they're just all basically the same in the book. Again, they talk about the different things they did, but again, I think differentiating them really kind of added a little bit to this whole thing. But again, we had so much talked about. We're running out of time already. We got to get to the big meat of the episode: Angstrom versus Mark, the big showdown, the final show, that Clash of the Titans, if you would. So, I mean, awesome. It was awesome. It was surprising for me. It went a little differently than I even expected to go. So I'll throw it off. TJ, you first. What'd you think of the final showdown between Levy, Mark, and plus something Pierre already mentioned and we talked about a little bit, but him agreeing with Oliver, going back to, I think, 2 episodes ago, where they had that long conversation about how they don't kill and, you know, killing is bad. And he agrees with them at the end. And, you know, he decides to kill Levy, which obviously doesn't go as planned. But TJ, take it away. This whole shebang and caboodle.
Yeah, you know, I actually do enjoy getting, like, as opposed to just like straight up Mark and Angstrom fighting, I like to see Mark dealing with the Angstrom's ploys a little bit more, just because when they are head to head, like, Mark can just beat the shit out of them. But so with that being the case, I do like seeing, like, you know, the things he sets up for him a little bit more. But I get it. I don't hate it from a writing standpoint. I don't hate it from a storytelling standpoint. I just hate it from my guy Mark that he's so aggressively agreeing with Oliver. You know, because to me,
he's right though. Like, he's got a point, more than a point.
So yeah, but here's the, like, so maybe this is the former teacher in me talking, right? Like, I know that Mark bringing this back to the Avatar, the Last Airbender again. You know, like I just brought up before the show, I made a tweet because Stephen Yeun voices the first Avatar 1 in The Legend of Korra. And so I made a joke like, it's Invincible War time. Who wins, Juan or Invincible? Nobody really interacted with the tweet. Nobody thought it was as funny as I did. But having said that,
I think
it does remind me a lot to Avatar the Airbender, the very last season, where Aang is fighting with, you know, what the world expects from him and what he wants to do when he's got to fight the Fire Lord, and everybody's saying, like, this is a war, you have to kill him. And he's saying, I'm a pacifist. Like, I don't believe that that's the answer. Like, there has to be another way. And he's going back and he's meditating. He's speaking to past avatars. He's like, you've been in my shoes. What do you think I should do? Everyone's like, you got to kill him. It's not about you. It's about the world. You have to, it's your duty to protect the world. And so you got to do what you got to do. And so Aang eventually, you know, decides they were wrong and he found his own way anyways. No spoilers here for those who haven't gotten there. But it reminds me a lot of this situation where, you know, Mark's fighting with that. I don't want to have to kill people, but is that the right thing to do? And Cecil even tells him, like, as a protector of the world, yeah, you should have done it. But you're a good guy and you can't fault yourself for being a good guy. And Oliver is at the stage where he's not a good guy yet. He's an impressionable little kid. And so it's dangerous to be fueling those thoughts in Oliver's mind at this young, impressionable of an age, because he hasn't gone through what Mark has gone through. He hasn't gone through that emotional maturity of knowing, like, I can't just kill people because they have lives, they have families, they're human beings who have their own life to experience. It's not up to me to take that away. I shouldn't be the one doing that. Oliver hasn't learned that yet. And so it's very dangerous to me for Mark to have that conversation with him, because I think that could be that specific conversation as the single most influential person in Oliver's life to put him down that path. Because to me, as a hero, Mark should not be planning to kill people, you know? Like, he should be protecting and not killing at all costs. Having said that, when you are the sole way to end a threat, I do get it. You know, I do get it. Like, it's not everyone can be Superman. And I get that. And so I'm not saying he shouldn't kill Angstrom, and I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm saying he needs to get, if he is going to be, shout out to Marvel Rivals, judge, jury, and executioner, allowing himself to be ruled with emotion is a very dangerous path to go on. He needs a clear line of, okay, if the world will end, if I don't kill this guy, okay, I can kill this guy. But without that, and if he's just acting on emotion, that's how he's going to go down the same path as all these other Invincibles.
While I agree with you 100%, I will say, unfortunately for Mark and everybody else, Invincible is not as much of a forgiving world as The Last Airbender. I wish it was so bad.
There was a genocide, man. It was a terrible world.
No, it was, but it's not there. Like, the hope that lives in that show is not here.
I know. Nor in the Superman universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say, like, I'll push back a little bit, just because that's kind of what I love about Invincible, is that they do subvert these hero tropes of, like you said, the hero shouldn't get to that point. Like, the hero should be that clear guiding, you know, differentiating that line. But to me, like, that just shows how much, again, a very common theme that we see with Powerplex, Angstrom, Levy, and again, the whole parallel symbolism of him fighting himself are, like, there are real consequences whether you do good or not, whether you fail, even if you don't fail, even if you do save the day, like when he, you know, beat Omni-Man and made him leave Earth, that still caused massive death and destruction. And like, everything in this show has a consequence, again, in victory or defeat. So, go ahead. You guys have notes?
What I was going to say is, to be clear, I'm not criticizing Invincible the story as much as Invincible the hero.
Yeah, no, I totally get you. Yeah,
I agree with you 100%. This is what I love about Invincible. This is what I love about the Invincible universe, is telling these types of stories, because they take the regular superhero tropes and they flip them on their head and they try and show us real world consequences within them. So I agree with you there 100%. I'm more looking at it like a, you know, like a teacher, a parent, a mentor.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to see your boy go down the path.
You just
know
saw all these other
like,
terrible versions of you.
Yeah.
You got to gut check yourself to make sure you don't become that
back.
terrible version of you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, again, it's as much as I personally want it, like you said, that's our boy, right? But Sean, again, this whole fight with Levy, I got a couple points to bring up about, like, just the way Levy fought him. I mean, the portals were freaking awesome, but yeah, Sean, just this whole thing, and again, Mark's decision to finally give in to his Omni-Man side, something, again, he's been struggling with.
What I really like about this fight is that it showed how both of them leveled up since the last time they met. Because obviously, Angstrom has these orbs, and his portal ability is like fine-tuned. But Mark also knows his playbook now, and he's not getting caught getting thrown through the multiverse again. Not this time. Which selfishly would be fun to see again, because that sequence is great.
Yeah.
Where's Agent Spider? All my homies love Agent Spider. That's just a fact of life. Everyone loves Agent Spider. It's fact.
Agent Spider fan club over here.
Yeah, so I would love to see more Agent Spider, to be honest, selfishly. But the way you saw him, like, he's like, I especially caught that on a second watch, being like, oh yeah, he knew exactly what was going on. He's missing all these portals,
flipping and flying, dodging. That was so cool.
And what a dope hero moment to him fight these orbs, which I have to believe that the design of how the orbs look has to be a Matrix callback, or like a Matrix reference. For some reason, I just
pick that up, but I like that.
I'm a big Matrix guy, so everything.
I see the poster back there.
You're big
everything goes to the Matrix. So like, that's the vibe I got from that. But to see him fighting back against them, and then to see them start to dissipate, I was like, what a like fist bump, like, yeah, Mark moment. That was
a never back down moment.
Yeah, Ryan
Straight
reminded me a
film,
lot of Never Back Down. I
afterwards.
don't know if you've ever seen the movie.
Reminded me a lot of Never Back Down.
I
But
don't know if you guys have ever heard of that movie.
I loved the orbs, dude. That was so cool. Like how they came out in like just a massive wave. Like you said, such a hell yeah moment seeing Mark power through that, which again, so similar to him and Eve fighting the other Marks, this scene is like so much longer than it is in the literally in the book. Mark just he just grabs him immediately. Like he actually comes through with Oliver and Bulletproof, and he like fights off a couple of the orbs and then just grabs Levy like he does in the end of this. So to see, like you said, Sean, exactly what you were talking about, like the progression of both of them, how Mark like you said, knows his playbook now, flipping around through the portals. I thought that was so cool. And again, the orbs, I thought the way they used them in the show was just super fun and creative. Really just took the concept from the book and elevated it to something else. But something I want to say this just very quickly for people out there who have read the books. I thought this was a cool little Easter egg. I could be making a stretch here, but to avoid as many spoilers as I can, later on in the book, there's a character that has a suit of metal, and this metal is specifically designed to battle Invincible. And so what it does is when he punches it, it produces the same frequency that Cecil uses to disrupt his ears. So, I mean, we don't really see them do that in this episode, but I thought it was interesting how they showed that they were strong enough to cut him and hold him back. And I just thought that could be a slight little Easter egg to that thing, to that type of metal that we're going to see in the future. So like I said, people out there that have read the book will kind of know what I'm talking about, but I wanted to bring that up because I thought that was really interesting. But again, dude, I think Invincible is justified in killing Levy, honestly, like as brutal as that sounds. And
100%.
I've called Oliver a little psycho a million times on this show, so I'm not defending him by any means, but it's, again, dude's got a point. But obviously, Levy escapes again to these freaking surgeons, whatever their deal is. So, I mean, it's pretty safe to assume that we are going to see our boy Levy. So before we get into the big reveal and set up for next season, what do you guys have any theories on Levy? When is he returning? How is he returning? What's his next step going to be? TJ, I'll throw it to you.
Seems like it won't be for a while because he's got to help rebuild this group of people, rebuild their culture and essentially whatever it is, their world, whatever it is he's going to be doing. So it does feel like it's probably going to be a while before we see him again. My thought was like, you know, we'll get Levy in a season 4 or a season 5 popping back up of like, ha, you have to deal with me again. I'm helping you and I have a new plan. But probably I got the vibe that we wouldn't be seeing him for a while just because there are a lot of other things. He was kind of a detour based on all the other things they were setting up this season. It was like, shit, now we got this guy to deal with. But what about the Viltrumite War and all this other stuff that's been happening? So absolutely, I think we will see him again. I got the vibe it won't be anytime soon, though. It might be at least another season away in how I kind of perceived it. The one last thing I want to touch on before we get to the end is I really enjoyed the what it means to be a hero conversations between Cecil and Mark. And Cecil trying to convince him to lead the Guardians of the Globe. And I was really waiting for because you don't think you're the right guy for this. That's why you're the right guy for this.
Yeah, because you
don't want this power, because you don't want to do it, and most of all, because you disagree with me, and you're willing to stand up to me. That's why it has to be you. Like that's like, because we saw Cecil. How did Cecil get his job in the first place? It was from defying orders and getting fired for being a good person and not the protector of the world. And that's what you need out of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Cecil knows he will go to any length to protect the world. So he wants a good person leading the Guardians of the Galaxy to keep him in check, to make sure they both, like he says, we're both still the good guys. And while we've seen both of them either were alternate marks or his dark, dangerous thoughts, and multiple times with Cecil going down darker paths when they're trying to be the good guys. And so I get what he's saying, and I think he should have pushed even harder, but I still really like the conversation between the two of them.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because they're definitely making Cecil a lot more, like you can understand him a lot better, I think, with these little conversations. This conversation happens a lot similar, but given the other things we've seen, I think it makes it a lot more impactful. And I'll also just bring up very quickly, little Easter egg in the background of that scene. You can see a portrait of the former director Radcliffe, who we saw in Cecil's origin story. And he is actually the one that bought Rex Splode from his parents and trained him to be an assassin. So I thought it was a kind of interesting little Easter egg to have a portrait behind Mark of him as they were talking about Rex sacrificing himself, again, going back to his life was pointless and again, proving it wasn't. But Sean, same kind of deal like TJ brought up. I really love this scene too of Mark denying the role of leadership. So what do you think? Do you think he should have taken that job, or you think he's doing the right thing by standing back because he is the perfect person to do so?
You know, sorry, throw that one to Sean first. I just had something pop up in my head that I realized I'm not ready to go first.
Oh, you're good, dude. Sean, take it away.
I do. It's a complicated feeling, I guess. I get why he said no in the moment. He just found out like one of his close friends just died fighting a version of himself after dealing with all the other stuff he was already dealing with. And as we saw in the beginning of the episode, he was already dealing with the power puck stuff. Dude's dealing with a lot emotionally and mentally at his current state. And to get something like this after the relationship he's had with Cecil this entire season, it's a lot to take in for sure. And I don't know this from comic or anything at all, but I think from a story standpoint, I think it would be really cool to see him lead the Guardians of the Globe like in the beginning of season 4. As we've seen, there is no short of threats to the earth, and in the beginning of the season, like Cecil was very paramount in training him, and probably one of the reasons he survived and did so well in the Invincible War. And I love that they made the point to be like, these Invincibles aren't as strong as our Invincible, which I think is different than the comics.
Yeah, they don't say that in the comic. That's new for the show. Again, very subtle little addition, but I thought that was very interesting how they added.
I love that. I love that our Mark is the guy.
Yeah, he's the goat, dude.
The reason I say
I want it. I want him to be the leader. Be the leader. Yeah. Just do it. There's no one left.
Do it, man.
We need you, bro. We need
you.
It. One of the reasons I think I love Invincible, and the other reason I compare it so much to Dragon Ball Z is growing up in the 90s as a Dragon Ball Z fan, we were all Gohan kids. We watched Gohan grow and saw him all of a sudden become the most powerful being. Gohan's more powerful than his dad. And then they just drop that story, and it's like, no, he's going to go to school now, and he's kind of the butt of every joke whenever a fight comes up. It was, and I mean, obviously they have movies like Dragon Ball Superhero now where it's like we get to see some really cool shit with Gohan. But it was disappointing growing up as like the little kid, as I'm a little kid watching the show, like he's eventually going to be the strongest. Like his dad is the most powerful warrior. One day it's going to be him. Invincible kind of is that story. You know, like Invincible is essentially
right.
What if Goku was shitty? What if Goku revealed when Gohan was a teenager that he's actually there to take over Earth and all the other Saiyans are coming? That's essentially what the story of Invincible is. And so it's really, really cool to get to see Mark grow up and be the guy. You know, we saw him get pummeled by his dad and multiple other people throughout the first few seasons, and he definitely gets pummeled, and I'm sure he will continue to get pummeled as the story goes on, but he's developing into the guy, and it's pretty exciting. Dude, and to your earlier question, do I think he should lead the Guardians of the Globe? I would also like to see the story because I love a squad, and I just would like to see it. You know, with great power comes great responsibility, Mark. You got to step up. You got to do your job. because I do think I'm with him. I don't think I think he has too much going on and too much on his plate, too much on his mind to lead the Guardians of the Globe to the best of his ability. I agree with you. But he is the second best, in my opinion, person on the planet to lead the Guardians of the Globe. And the best one is in a coma right now. And so if Adam Eve is not available and doesn't want to do it, Mark, it should be you. You know, like I kind of think that in a perfect world, Eve would be the leader of the Guardians of the Globe because she has a bit more of a logical head on her shoulders, I think, than Mark does. She's a little less emotional than Mark is. But if she's not there to do it, I really do think it should be Mark. And so I get Cecil's perspective. I get Mark's perspective. But that's why I was thinking like Cecil should have pushed back a little harder because he's right.
Yeah, he should have pushed
Counterpoint.
a little bit. Go.
Maybe he didn't push harder because he knows all the shit he's going through right now. And he's going to let it simmer.
Do it himself.
And
he's like,
he'll come to the conclusion himself. And especially he'll come to the conclusion after he talks to Eve. As soon as he brings up to Eve, Eve will be like, yeah, you should lead it. And I'll join too. And he'll be like, you know what? Great idea.
You know what? Yeah. You know what? That's a great idea. I wish someone else said that. But Eve leading the Guardians, I would love that. That would be awesome. And before we get to our last topic of discussion, I also want to bring up going back to the power difference between the marks. Shout out to a friend of the show, Paul from Heavy Spoilers. He had a really great point on this that I thought was really interesting. Basically saying how
you're right here, right now. Damn you, Paul. Get your ass on our Invincible show.
Yeah, dude. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, Paul.
What an asshole.
I can't say that. He's great.
you know he likes he's down for that kind of humor.
Oh no, he loves the humor for sure. But he brought up how the other marks, they don't. So basically, like our mark has to go through a lot of different trials than these other marks didn't. Most of these marks just immediately joined Omni-Man. So they just became like rulers, right? But we see that this mark has to train to fight the Viltrumites. Like he has to continuously improve his power, his skills to face this eventual threat that most of these other marks probably never had to face. So I thought that was a pretty cool read on how, like I said, maybe that's why they're not as strong as this universe mark. Also kind of going with, again, talking about the Eve and Debbie influence of it all. So I thought that was a really cool kind of explanation of why they may have made that change. But we got to talk about the end of this episode, obviously leading us into the big grand finale of, I can't believe we're at the finale. I can't believe we are already at episode 8. It seems like we just started this yesterday. But the big bad. You thought Angstrom Levy was bad? Things are about to get way worse because Conquest is here. Conquest is here to assess Mark's progress in taking over the Earth for the Viltrum Empire. And I have chills. I'm pretty sure, I don't know the actor's name, but I'm pretty sure it's the guy from Walking Dead and Supernatural, right?
Yeah, the ultimate Walking Dead rematch.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, I forgot that he smashed Steven's head in. Oh, my God. That adds a whole nother layer to this. But what we talked about this last week, we all kind of, at least, even though you guys haven't read the comics, had a relative idea of how this plays out. And we talked about if we thought that they were going to give us that 1-2 punch to end off this season. And we're getting the 1-2. So Sean, I'll throw it to you first. I mean, prepare for my arrival, Worm. I mean, what a way to make an entrance, right?
Yeah, this dude is crazy looking. The thing that sticks out most to me is that he's like old, his eyes messed up, he's got this gauntlet for a hand, and you're like, okay, so now Mark's fought Viltrumites, right? But has he fought a Viltrumite that's obviously been around for a really long time? And that he flat out says, he's like, oh, that's why they sent me. And I'm like, okay. But the scary part is that Mark wants this fight.
Oh yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, he's not ready for this fight. Get out of here, dude. What are you talking about? So the stakes are high, and yeah, the finale is going to be a wild time.
Did you shit your britches a little bit when you saw how crazy that dude looks?
I mean, a little, but like at the same time, I'm like, he wants this. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Let's see what happens.
Hey, let's see what happens. Tej, what an entrance for Conquest to make and really kind of, I mean, it's crazy to say, but like raise the stakes of what we just witnessed. This crazy 40 minutes of television.
I have to applaud the last 2 weeks of television makers just because Invincible episode 7, Severance episode 7, Paradise episode 7, legitimately 10 out of 10 episodes of television. Like perfect. Not soft 10s, hard 10 out of 10 episodes of television. And specifically the final scene in Invincible episode 7 and the final scene in Daredevil Born Again episode 2. It reminded me of the movie Never Back Down. So I had to call back to it one more time before we're done. I had to go one more time.
Yes.
But truly, it got me so damn excited. Like, to me, it does not matter how big of a threat Conquest is, how big and scary and menacing he looks. When Mark said, like, look, all I want right now, you see all of this? This is all my fault. So all I want right now is to punch someone in the face as hard as I can. I believe he will do it. I believe he will win. I don't give a damn how strong Conquest is because Mark's about to go Gohan mode, find a hidden power within himself and kick his ass.
But dude, that's exactly what Conquest wants, though. Like I'm telling, like he wants it. He loves that shit. But I love again that they gave us this 1-2 punch. And to what Pierre is saying, I just highlighted the comment. But Sean, you brought this up too. Like, dude is old, man. I mean, think about it. I don't know if we ever got confirmed like timeline of how old Nolan is. I know like hundreds of years, I would say at least. He said, but you see how much older Conquest looks than Nolan. So like that kind of even gives you relative idea. And like Pierre said, he was around before the like Viltrumite Civil War that Nolan kind of talks about in the first season, about how basically they all kill each other to take out any weakness of their species. Yeah. He was part of that and he survived that. So again, kind of gives you an idea of how much of a problem this dude is. But I don't want to say anymore because we're going into our final episode of this season. Obviously, we're getting Mark versus Conquest. And like you said, Mark wants it too. Mark's ready for the hands too. So what do you guys think we're going to see? Maybe not necessarily what do you guys think we're going to see, but to TJ, to your point with Angstrom Levy, do you think Mark is going to hold himself back here? Or is he fully breaking all restrictions? He is just completely giving in to every dark impulse that he is constantly holding back. TJ, I'll bring this on you first because you kind of brought up this whole, moral dilemma that Mark is going through.
Yeah, no punches will be thrown no punches will be pulled. Sorry, punches will be thrown. No
punches are thrown.
Because like he can't.
They're gonna play chess.
Hold back. He holds back, he's dead. If he holds back, he will be ripped in half. So this is why, like, we talk about like Mark's perspective of like there are certain people I'm going to have to kill. He's right because we do live in this. We don't, thankfully. But he does live in this world where there are these constant threats coming to Earth that will destroy him and the planet if he doesn't destroy them first. There aren't any alternative options. And so with that being said, he can't hold back. And we see at the in the frame of mind that he's in, he's not going to. And so one of the most exciting parts about this for me is either, you know, Mark's mad and Mark's stepping up and he's going to win a fight against his most powerful foe yet, or Mark's going to get the shit beat out of him. And what happens every time Mark gets the shit beat out of him? He comes back a hell of a lot stronger than he was before. So with that being the case, I'm just excited for the battle because I know we're either going to get a Mark that's even stronger down the line, or we're going to get a David versus Goliath victory.
I mean, maybe, man. Sean, what do you
Obviously,
think?
I won't dive into what happens next because obviously we've seen the next 8 episodes.
What are you talking about?
Or not next 8 episodes, the 8th episode, the finale. I'll tell you what I was very much hoping would happen when I was I finished episode 7 here, is that we get this cool long fight. Mark's eventually Conquest wins. Mark's about to die, and then Alan the Alien and Omni-Man show up, and the 3 of them kick Conquest's ass. That's what I was hoping to happen. Episode 7.
A lot. I mean, I know we got like those 2 episodes of them, but I wish we got more Alan this season, honestly, now that we're approaching the end. He's one of my favorite characters. Sean, is Mark holding back? Is he not? And also, again, I want to bring up TJ's point too, because I think it's very interesting. But win or lose, whether he wins or lose against Conquest, do you think this is something that Mark can come back from? I mean, Invincible War, Powerplex, Invincible War, Conquest, back to back to back. Do you think that Mark can rise above all that and come back to his kind of more morally sound stance on being a hero?
I don't think he's going to hold back at all. Not one bit. And what a dope ending shot, by the way. Amazing. And I know it's like literally straight out of the comics. It's like the same shot, which is awesome. Do I think he can come back? I mean, yeah, because I don't think he's really crossed a line. I mean, I guess he has, and he's now willing to kill if it's for the greater good, but I don't think his morality has changed. I just think the stakes of the world have changed, and that he realized that there's some threats that he just has to get rid of, I think. And maybe some people won't agree with it, but at the same time, you're like, imagine if all of those Invincibles lived, like 2/3 of them got killed or something like that, like a good chunk.
I mean, they're in a dimension somewhere.
Well, not all of them. Some did die.
I just mean the ones who did survive, they're technically still out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to come back, and it's not going to be great. But I don't know. It's like so hard because when you're dealing with a world like this where the threats
that's
are
fun because
so
again, what did the Kryptonians do in the Superman universe? They sent a bunch of the criminal Kryptonians to the Phantom Zone, so we get kind of like the reverse version of that.
That's a good read, dude. I didn't even make that.
Yeah, they're stuck in that weird dimension where Mark thought he lost his innocence or something. Mark thought he lost his... You know what? This reminds me of the movie Never Back Down. Just kidding.
I agree.
But yeah,
great poll. That's a good call.
Dude, thank you, man. Thank you.
It actually reminds me of Never Back Down 2.
Nice. Good poll, dude. I just think Mark's evolving as like a hero and kind of adding to the point where it's like, I think he should be the leader because when push comes to shove, he will make that tough choice if he needs to. And like that's what we need at the front lines of saving the earth from all these crazy threats that just seem to be multiplying by the day as we go on in the Invincible universe. There's never a shortage of something coming to take over the earth or just mess with Mark or whatever, and he can't hold back against Conquest or everyone he loves is dead. So get to punching, bro.
Not even everyone he loves. Everyone.
Everyone.
Just everyone. I am so excited for people to see this next episode. Like, I cannot contain myself enough. Again, the 1-2 shot. Again, the thing that we kind of talked about if they were gonna do at all. This is my favorite part of the entire Invincible series. It is so good, and I'm so excited for people to see what happens next episode, because no spoilers here, but I will tell you, you are in for a ride, and personally, my favorite episode of Invincible I have ever seen. So we have to leave it there, and we're gonna have to catch up with y'all next week, and I gotta tell you, if you tuned in this week, you do not want to miss next week. It is going to be a great episode. Also, if you guys are interested in diving into the comics, you can go check out issue number 60 and number 61. That's going to take you throughout this whole episode. But that's going to be all for this week until we see you guys next week. And as always, Sean, let the people know. I know you were just talking about your Kang and Angstrom Levy article. What else you got coming down the pipeline? You got any Agents of Fandom exclusive? Obviously, the Newton Brothers.
Yes. Got the Newton Brothers interview. TJ and I are going to rock. I interviewed those guys last year, so I'm excited to talk about them again. I got some fun follow-up questions to bring to the table for them. I got some reviews coming this month. There's a Dope Thief review dropping tomorrow, I believe, and then another one in a few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. I just dropped a really dope Paradise article at Collider talking about what season 2 could entail now that we know how season 1 ended, and season 2 is definitely coming. So make sure you go check that out. I have, like I said, another Invincible one coming. I have a Daredevil one about Wilson Fisk and Vanessa that should be dropping probably today or tomorrow, kind of diving into why the relationship is like it is in the show currently. So got a lot going on. And of course, Metalcore Nerds, check it out wherever you find podcasts. It's there.
Dude, killing it right now. And we got a cameo from the little baby Zwarych. TJ, plug all. We have everything. This might take another whole half hour to go through all the stuff we got going on, but let the people know, where can they find us, all the great shows we're doing, and we'll wrap it up for next week.
Yeah, we went too long. Dad duty is starting, but yeah, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because you don't want to miss out on any of the great stuff we got coming. As per usual on the YouTube channel, always plug, we got our interview with Robert Kirkman and showrunner Simon Ratsiopa talking some Invincible. We have interview with showrunner. I plugged the Daredevil one already. Plus, we got the Newton Brothers one coming up. Got my interview with director of Captain America: Brave New World, Julius Ona, up on the YouTube page. We got some stuff coming for our Supernatural fans in the near future. Going to be talking to some of the cast members from Andor within the next month or so. So a lot of really fun stuff coming. I'm going to have reviews for all of it up on agentsofandom.com. Subscribe wherever you get the pods. Follow us on socials at Agents of Fandom on TikTok and Twitter. Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter. Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And yeah, that's it. We got lots of fun stuff coming. Severance tomorrow. And then back to more Daredevil, Invincible, and Severance next week.
Beautiful. Again, we got everything you need over here at Agents of Fandom, so be sure to tune in next week, and we will all cry together of the season finale of Invincible and patiently wait for season 4, which I hope is not going to be as long. So we will see you guys next week.